Okay.
Okay, Be'ez Hashem, today's daf is daf Ayin Zayin. Again, it's not so long and it's interesting topics. Tanan Hossam, we learned over there. Okay, here we go. Tanan Hossam, we learned over there. Mefirin Nedarim b'Shabbos. A man can nullify his wife's neder on Shabbos. Okay, a husband to a wife, a father to a daughter. And we don't say, it's like you're doing it in Torah, you're not supposed to talk about Nedarim on Shabbos. That's okay. A wife that makes a neder, let's say she's not going to do something, she's not going to visit her father-in-law, makes a neder, the husband can make for the neder, can nullify the neder. V'nish'olin l'nedarim shehein l'tzorach Shabbos. And a man who makes a neder could go to a rabbi and have that rabbi release him of the neder, but only if the neder would interfere with his enjoyment of Shabbos. So, for example, if somebody made a neder and says, I am not going to eat food, well, that interferes with, or I'm not going to eat meat, that interferes with your enjoyment of Shabbos. And huadin, if he says, I'm not going to drink wine. So therefore, only those nedarim, you can go and have a rabbi release you of the neder. Why can't I have a rabbi release me of the neder at any time? What's wrong with it? I mean, what's the Chilul Shabbos over here? The answer is because some say it's an extra tircha for, first of all, getting three people together to sit down to release you from the neder, and also it leads to other conversations. So we try to not to be mater neder on Shabbos only if there's a real cause that will interfere with your enjoyment of Shabbos. So the Gemara says like this. That's why some said that the Kol Nidre that we have on Yom Kippur, we try to do it right before sunset or something like that. And the reason is because since that is trying to be mater neder, according to some opinions, and therefore it's to release the vows, and we only could release vows on Shabbos and Yom Tov, only certain vows, only if it interferes with your Shabbos, not every vow, and therefore we try to do it earlier before sunset, so we don't get involved with the question of releasing vows on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Okay, so now the Gemara says, the Mishnah said before, Mefirin Nedarim b'Shabbos, that a husband can nullify his wife's Nedarim on Shabbos. Ibaylahu. So the yeshiva boys asked the question, Mefirin Nedarim b'Shabbos l'tzara Shabbos, is that limited to a husband made for the neder of his wife only if it interferes with the Shabbos? In other words, only on such if his wife made a neder not to eat meat or drink wine on Shabbos, yes, then the husband can make for the neder, can nullify the neder. But if it's not related to enjoyment of Shabbos, perhaps the husband should not be made for the neder. That he's not allowed to nullify the neder. Or maybe afilu shaylitzara, he can make for any neder on Shabbos, even if it's a neder that she's not going into a certain store. So the husband can make for the neder. Now, two reasons why. First of all, when the husband made for is the neder, it's not like, you have to sit down with three people to release the neder. That looks like a din. A made for neder is when the husband says, honey, all those the neder that you just said is nullified. So what could be wrong with that? But maybe you could only limit it on, maybe you can only do it, maybe it's just, you're wasting words on Shabbos, and we can't waste words on Shabbos. So therefore, we limit the husband's hafara only if it's something related to Shabbos, if it interferes with the Shabbos. Also, furthermore, if you want to say that we allow we'll see it in a second. Tashma, come in here. Tani Rav Ziti debei Rav Papi. Rav Ziti said in the name of Rav Papi, Ein Mefirin Nedarim elo tzarich Shabbos. Your husband cannot nullify the neder of his wife only if it's necessary to do so on Shabbos. Only if it interferes with the Shabbos, then he could nullify the neder. Otherwise, he has to let it fly. Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi said, that's not so. Our Mishnah seems to apply that a husband can make for any neder of his wife. The Mishnah says, Nadra im chashecha. If a woman made a neder, let's say an hour after Shalosh Shudas, right? It's an hour before sunset, Matzah Shabbos, right? So what kind of neder could she have made that possibly interferes with Shabbos? She already is full. She already ate and drank wine on Shabbos. So she made a neder, any neder. She said, I'm not going into a certain store. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. And our Mishnah says specifically, Meifalo Achaloi Techshach. He should really quickly nullify the neder before it gets dark Matzah Shabbos, because then when it gets dark Matzah Shabbos, he's not gonna be able to make for any neder. So the Amrit says, the Gemara continues this thought. L'tzarech Shabbos en shloi l'tzarech Shabbos loi. If you could only nullify nedarim that interfere with Shabbos, yes, but those that don't interfere with Shabbos, a husband has no right to nullify. Who cares that she made this neder? And right before dark, right before Matzah Shabbos, even if she made that neder during the day, let's say she made it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a neder on Shabbos, that she's not going into a certain store, he cannot nullify that neder because it's unnecessary. Has nothing to do with Shabbos. So what Rav Ashi proved is that our Mishnah must be of the opinion that a husband can nullify any type of neder that his wife does on Shabbos. And so you brought me a brisa in the name, a brisa that was taught in the yeshiva of Rapapi, that ein mefirin l'darim el l'tzorech Shabbos, that a husband can only make for nedarim that interfere with her enjoyment of Shabbos, but that's it. So what is it? Can he make for every neder? Can he nullify every neder? Or it's specific only nedarim that l'tzarech Shabbos? So the Gemara says, you're right, Tanoi, it's a machlokes Tanoim, if a husband can make for all nedarim. Because one man the Yama hold, and we had this yesterday, hafaris nedarim kol yom. A husband can only make for the neder that day. After that day, then you don't. Then if your power to make for a neder is expired. But Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Amru, be'es le'es. You get a 24-hour period to make for the neder. So now you can get it. Lamandio, according to opinion, kol yom and tvei loi. If you have the opinion that you could be made for the neder only that day and that's it, then of course, afilu shloi l'tzar Shabbos mefer. Then Chachamim would give you the right, a husband, the right to mefer, to nullify any neder, because you're limited. You only have 1 hour. Let's say she made a neder Shabbos afternoon. You basically have 1 hour to make for that neder. And if you can't do it, then automatically the default is it's confirmed neder. So therefore, that opinion will hold. That opinion, if you hold how far as nedarim is limited for that day, that opinion would hold that you could be made for any neder on Shabbos because you're time constrained. Because if you're not going to be made for it on Shabbos, you can't make for it on Sunday. But lemandi oma me'es le'es. So if a person, but according to the opinion that holds that you get a 24-hour period, so then technically you can nullify the neder. The husband can nullify the neder on Sunday. If she made it 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, so he'll make for it on Sunday morning because you still get a 24-hour period. According to that opinion, then l'tzarech Shabbos en shaloi l'tzarech Shabbos loy. Then that opinion will hold that you could only make for nedarim only that those that are relevant for Shabbos, and those that are not relevant for Shabbos, he should wait till Sunday to do it. So that's how we leave it. It's a machlokes Tanoim of when a husband can make for a neder on Shabbos. Does it all nedarim, or just limited to nedarim that are Shabbos, that interferes with her enjoyment on Shabbos? And so it's a machlokes Tanoim, but it's dependent on how much time does a husband have to nullify a neder. If he has only that day, then we give him the right to make for any day, any neder on Shabbos. If he has a 24-hour period, then we tell him, look, you can only be made for nedarim that are l'tzorech Shabbos, but not something that's not l'tzorech Shabbos. You should wait till Sunday. Again, what's the reason why we're so concerned with her husband made for a neder on Shabbos? It's because maybe it's kind of language, nullifying neder. Saying the word nullify could be like a weekday type of word, and therefore we try to limit when a person can express those words on Shabbos. The language that you speak on Shabbos has to be very different than the language that you speak during the weekday. We'll see more about that in a moment. Let's say a guy has a neder. He has a neder. He took a neder that he's not going to drink. He's not going to drink wine. So he wants to make kiddush. So there, you're allowed to go to a rabbi to have your neder released because it's l'tzoirech Shabbos. It's because of Shabbos related release. So the Gemara asks a question: Ibaylahu. Do we do we allow this leniency of going to a rabbi on Shabbos to get your neder released is only if you didn't have time to go to the rabbi before Shabbos. So then we let you do it on Shabbos. But if you had time to go to the rabbi before Shabbos, let's say you made that neder on Thursday that you're not drinking wine, so you had a whole Friday to go to the rabbi to get the neder released. Why did you wait till Shabbos? Would we allow you to go to the rabbi on Shabbos to get this neder release? Ashma, come in here that you can. The Izdiku le Rabbanan lebei Rav Zutra bereid Rav Ze'era. The Rabbanan allowed with Mata neder for the son of Rav Zutra, who was the son of Rav Ze'era. This kid had nedarim that he had time to go to the rabbi on Friday afternoon, and he did not go on Friday afternoon. And nevertheless, on Shabbos, the Rabbanan released him from his neder, even though he had time to do it before Shabbos. So the Gemara continues, and the Gemara says, okay, if you could go to a rabbi on Shabbos, the technically problem with going to get your neder released on Shabbos is perhaps you're sitting down 3 people and you're saying, please release me on my neder. So Rav Yosef wanted to say that leniency, Sover Rav Yosef Lemeimar, Rav Yosef thought to say that we said, Nishol and Nedarim b'Shabbos, you could ask to get released of your neder on Shabbos is only if you're going to one rabbi, the expert rabbi, to release you. And we allow you to do that. Yes. Why? Because that doesn't look like you're sitting by a din Torah, but you're at a court case. It's just one rabbi giving you the release. So that maybe was permitted. But Rav Yosef thought, Bishloisha had yoitis, if you're going in front of 3 people who are not experts, but 3 people, loy, that would not be permitted. Mishum de mischaze kedina. It looks like you're sitting down for a din Torah. And we know the courts are on recess on Shabbos, and we're not allowed to go to court on Shabbos. So that's why he felt that the heter to get your neder released is only if you're going to one expert, not with three individuals. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, Kaven de Svirlam, since we hold that really getting released from a neder is not like a court case, because afilu mu'umad, even if the 3 people are standing, you see, if it's a court case, the judges have to sit. But to get released from a neder, the people who are there could stand. They can't move around, but they don't have to sit down. Afilu b'kroivim, you can have your relatives as part of the 3. Let's say your brother be part of the 3 that's releasing you from a neder. You don't have to go to a stranger. Unlike a court case, you have to be by a stranger. And obviously, only a relative is permitted. You can't go to a woman or a katan, because they're not permitted because they have a psul in their guf. They're certainly not in the parsha of releasing people of neder. They can never be a dayan anywhere. But your brother could be a dayan somewhere else. But still, your brother could be involved with the 3 people that release you from your neder. So va'afila b'layla, and you could actually release nedarim at night. So all these things indicate when you sit down in front of 3 people to get your neder released, everybody knows it's not a court case. It doesn't appear that you're in front of a judgment case, and therefore it's permitted even on Shabbos to go to 3 people to get your neder released, albeit only nedarim that are l'tzoirech Shabbos. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Rabbi Abba said in the name of Huna, and maybe Rav said it also. The halacha is Mefir Nedar Balayla. You can nullify a neder at night, so that a husband can nullify the neder at night. So the Gemara says, "Well, masnitinu. What do Rav need to teach me this din?" Nadra B'leil Shabbos, the Mishnah says that if a man and a woman were sitting down to eat Friday night meal, and the woman made a neder during that meal, the husband can revoke and nullify the neder right then and there. So, of course, you could be made for the neder at night. I don't need Rav to teach me that. Ella, what he meant to say is halacha nish'olim balayla. You can go to a rabbi to get the neder released even at night, because it's not like a court case that has to be done during the daytime. So you could actually get 3 people to sit down to release you from a neder even at night. Amalei. So now it wasn't clear whether Rav said that. Amalei Rab Abba Rav Huna. Rab Abba said to Rav Huna, Amar Rav Haki, did Rav indeed say that? Amalei. So Rav Huna, who was a student by Rav, he said, not really. I don't think Rav said it. But when somebody said this halacha in front of Rav, ishtik, Rav was silent. So I assumed that Rav was silent because he agreed with the concept that nish'olim ba'alayla, that you could ask and release a neder at night. Amalei, so Rabbi Abba said to him, ishtik amrit, are you saying that Rav, when you were there, Rav was actually silent? Or shasik amrit? You see, maybe Rav Huna didn't speak so well. He had trouble with his language. So it sounded like he was saying that when the person said the halacha nisholim balayla, Rav was drinking, let's say, a cup of coffee, okay, and he was drinking something, and therefore he didn't respond because he was drinking. And then Rav Huna left the room, and so he perhaps did not hear that Rav responded that he disagrees with that, and he doesn't hold nisholim balayla. So basically, Rav Abba was questioning Rav Huna, did you really hear Rav say verbally, halacha nisholim balayla, or is this something that you assumed that Rav hold? This is because you made an inference that Rav would hold that. He didn't answer it. Gemara continues. Omar Rav Iki bar Oven. Rav Ika bar Oven said, Izdiku le Rav l'Rabba. Rav gave a release to Rabbah, who made a neder. Rav released Rabbah of his neder. We go to Avava Mebeis, Bikituna de Bei Rav, in the side room of the Beis Medrash. In other words, he didn't want to do it in the Beis Medrash because you're not allowed to, it's not Divrei Torah. So you did it on the side room off the Beis Medrash to release him of the neder. And Rav did it yichidi at night, alone, because Rav was an expert in Nedarim, and it was at nighttime. So this person, Rav Ika bar Oven, said testimony that Rav actually, in fact, released somebody with a neder even at night. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav said in the name of Rav Nachman, halacha. The halacha is nisholim nedarim oimid. You could release people of the neder. Oimid, you could stand while you're doing it, even though we try to sit, but you could really stand. Yichidi, if the person's an expert, he could do it alone. U'alayla at night. Uba Shabbos, you could do it on Shabbos. You can release neders on Shabbos. Uvikroivim, and even in the group, the group of 3 that you want to have to release your neder, you could have a relative in there. You can have your father, you can have your son, you can have your brother. Even if you had time to release your neder on Friday afternoon and you waited to Shabbos, it's also permitted to be done. So the Gemara just questions, and of course, only Shabbos neders, things that would interfere with your enjoyment of Shabbos. Because if it's a regular neder, then wait till Sunday to do it. Now, you said before, Oymid, you could stand while you're releasing the neder. Said the Gemara of Tanya, didn't we learn in the Brisa that when Rabbi Gamliel was releasing somebody from his neder, Yored Rabbi Gamliel min hachamor, he got off his donkey, Vinis Atef, he put on a talis, V'yoshev, and he sat like he's in a din Torah, V'hitter loye nidra, and he was matter somebody his neder. So we see that Rabbi Gamliel was pedantic about sitting while he was mattering somebody a neder. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Gamliel Sava, Rabbi Gamliel hold, Ein Paischim Bacharata. That's what the gear says. That you can't just release somebody of a neder if he comes to you and says, I regret making the neder, or I was in a bad mood when I made the neder. That's not good enough. Rabbi Gamliel has to only way to release, according to Rabbi Gamliel, the only way to release somebody from a neder is if he comes up with a certain piece of information that if he would have known, he would have never made the neder. So it's called a Pesach. an opening, something that was he didn't have this information, he didn't know about this information prior to him making the neder. And had he known about this information, he would have not made that neder. So therefore, that takes a lot of effort and investigation by the rabbi. And therefore, Rabbi Gamaliel had to sit down and think about it. But so Mikar Nidar Be'ini, he's trying to uproot the neder as if it never happened, as if the whole thing was a mistake. Ubaya Yune, he needed to investigate it. That's why Rabbi Gamaliel would sit when saying the neder. Rab Nachman holds, we don't go to the end. So Rabbi Nachman holds that you could easily take somebody out of his neder, like we learned yesterday, that some of the Amoraim would throw darts when somebody would come to talk about the neder to get released. It doesn't take much to release somebody of a neder. All the guy has to do is say, "Do you regret? I regret making the neder," and we release him. And therefore, since it's so easy to release somebody from a neder, that's why these rabbis hold that you can even stand while doing it, because you don't have to have your thinking cap on to release somebody of a neder. Amar late Rabbi Rav Nachman. Rabbi said to Rav Nachman, Tazu mar haimerabonim the asu mimarava. Did you see this rabbi who came from Eretz Yisrael? Va'amar, and he said over the following: Is the kuki le rabbanon? The rabbanon gave release to Lebrei the Rav Huna bar Oven, the son of Rav Huna bar Oven, who made a neder, ushiru le nidre, and they released him of his neder. But the rabbis weren't so easy with him in Israel. And they said, Zil uboya rachame al nafchoch dechatas. You have to, because you made this neder, you have to pray God that you made an avera. And it's a big avera to make a neder. Even though you didn't violate the neder, it's a big avera to make a neder. And we're talking about somebody who makes a neder that it's not to prevent him from an avera. It's not to a neder that, let's say, a neder that you make a neder for tzedakah because Hashem you're in a time of stress, a time of trouble. You make a neder for tzedakah. That's not what we're talking about. A sin to make a neder is a neder. Let's say you make a neder. I'm not eating cake, so that might be a sin because at the end of the day, it's not an avera to eat cake, but you're trying to make a neder so that you get off cake. But it's a sin to have nedarim on your head because there's a possibility you can violate that. The Tanu Rabdimi Achuli the Rav Safra, the Rabdimi taught, call a noider. Anybody who makes a neder, afal pishu makaimoy, even if you eventually keep the neder, nikre choyter, you're called a sinner. Amar Rav Zvid, my kara, what is the proof of the pasuk that you're called a sinner? Because the pasuk says, v'chisechtal lindar, when you stop making promises and oaths, and vows, you won't come to do an avera. But if you don't stop making vows, there is an avera to it. So really, a person should do what he can to prevent himself from taking a neder. It's not something that you should just throw out of your mouth, unless for important circumstances. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. A man says to his wife, to his wife, he has to confirm a neder, right? His wife makes a neder, then it's up to the husband to confirm the neder. So instead of saying the word, honey, your neder is confirmed, he tells her like this, Kol nedarim shitidari, efshe shitidari. Any neder that you made in the future, I don't like. I don't like when you make neders. So he's talking about the future. So she just made a neder, and he says, I don't want you to do it in the future. So we can imply that he means to say that what you just made is confirmed. Or if he said Yafa, we skip these words, Ein Zeder Al Klum, the Ran Sakar said, Yafa, he says to the woman, you did great. Ein Kamaisra, there's nobody like you. If you wouldn't have made this neder, I would have made this neder on your behalf. So all these methods of saying are somehow indirectly saying you're confirmed. So the Mishnah, the Brisa says, Dvar Kayamim, his words are a confirmation of her neder. Even though he didn't say, honey, your neder is confirmed, but if he said it in such an indirect way, which we understand that he wants to confirm the neder, then it's a neder that is confirmed. One more piece of Gemara. La yama adam, a person doesn't say liishtoi to his wife b'Shabbos on Shabbos, mufar lechi. I want to nullify in that neder. And this week, what we said, that the use of the word nullify, for some reason, is considered not using your speech properly on Shabbos. Batalechi, it's void. Don't say void is let's say a word you use for checks or something like that. Don't say it. Don't use those words if you have to nullify your wife's neder on Shabbos, because kederach she'omer lo b'choil, in the method that you say it in the weekday. There's certain language that you have to change on Shabbos, so it doesn't seem, so people can tell that you're talking different on Shabbos. Ella, if you want to say, let's say she made a neder, I'm not eating apples. So the way you nullify and void out her neder on Shabbos, you tell her, instead of the word nullify, you said, take the apple and eat it. Or let's say she's not drinking soda, you tell her, take it and drink it. That is understood that you're not confirming the neder, you're actually voiding out or nullifying her neder. But Rabbi Yochanan said, the fact is that you're not using the right language. The right language is to say, mufar lacha lechi. Your neder is null and void. But instead of saying that, he said, oh, take the drink, take the apple. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan said, if you're using such type of language, which is not direct language, you should you have to, in your heart, say, I'm nullifying the neder. So if in your heart you're nullifying the neder, along with, it's important to say, you say, oh, honey, take it and drink it. So that nullifies her neder. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Beis Shammai says, "B'Shabbos mevata b'liboy." Beis Shammai says, you're right, this works. You could nullify in your heart if you say tli v'ichli, tli v'shi. But in the weekdays, this plan doesn't work. Moitzi b'sfasav. You have to actually say out of your mouth, mufra lechi. It doesn't work during the weekdays. But Beis Hillel says, echad zeh, v'echad zeh, it doesn't matter whether it's weekday or Shabbos. If you mevatel in your heart and say, I want my wife's neder to be nullified, along with telling her a language that's indirectly implying that you're not happy with her neder, that's okay. You don't have to say the actual words, mufar lach, wife, it's nullified. You don't have to say it. If you do say words that indirectly apply that you don't like your wife took this neder, and you really in your heart want your wife not to have this neder, that's good enough according to Beis Hillel, even during the weekdays. One thing you do see that on Shabbos, your language has to be much more refined on Shabbos, and that's why we say in the Shemoneh Esrei, Musaf and Shabbos, the gam ha'ehavim devareha gedula b'charu. Those that love the speech of Shabbos. Those that are careful to refine their speech on Shabbos, gedula b'charu, they're choosing for themselves to become wealthy. By refining your speech on Shabbos, that is a great segula to bring down shefa, a shefa of wealth for yourself. So this is what we've learned today.